And what is up, everybody? Jeremy here, excited to bring you project number 2, a robot build that we are putting together for Autism Awareness Month. And to get things started, we have some lids, some plastic tubes from poop bags, doggy poop bags, that's right. And we have some sample applicators from Sephora. We're going to use this USB charger adapter for the head and a set of BNC cable connectors. And from there, we'll see where things go. As I sand, file it, and scuff all these plastic pieces, little did I know just how big this project was going to become. I started in the middle of February, and I'm currently narrating this video on April 15th, and I'm still not done just yet. I have to admit that the experience has been incredible. I learned so much in the building process, and I also learned so much about autism, the autistic community, parents of autistic children, and so much more. I felt like I grew personally in this build process, which is an incredible statement. I will also say that I am wearing a respirator during this prep work because I do not like inhaling plastic. I learned that from the very first project. It's just not a good thing. So always wear a respirator when sanding anything. Do not inhale wood, do not inhale plastic, or whatever you might be sanding down where particles might be flying in the air. And when I finish the prep work, it's time to start putting things together. I am using thin viscosity CA glue, which is great in getting glue into very tight spots, but it does get everywhere. I eventually add in medium viscosity CA glue in my arsenal if I want to have more precision. But until then, I am just using thin viscosity with a lot of baking soda. That's right, baking soda is awesome. It helps CA glue dry faster and a lot harder, and I also love the texture that it adds to the piece. I do. I love it. I love it. The next thing we have to do is set up some holes in these sections. I am choosing to use a soldering iron to melt holes, and then I feed a beautiful tube from a poop bag roll. So that way it holds all those sections together and also creates a spot where I can feed electrical cable into, because I want to add lights to the head of this robot. I want the eyes to be lights. And I find it very interesting to figure out if you need to cut, drill, or if you should melt something to achieve the result you want and to do it quickly and efficiently. As a reminder, if you are melting plastic, please use a respirator in a well-ventilated area. You do not want to inhale that. To lock the tube in place, I add in more CA glue and baking soda, and with that, the torso of lids is now complete. For the hips, I elect to use wooden beads. And to make a secure mechanical connection from the beads to the main torso, I need to drill some holes through that doggy poop bag tube. And once that is complete, I am then able to feed a Sephora sample makeup applicator through the beads, through the doggy poop bag tube, and make a secure mechanical connection from the hips to the torso. The legs were going to be easy. They were just going to be the BNC cable connectors, and since the robot is going to be sitting, I didn't have to worry about a secure mechanical connection. However, the issues that I had was going to be with the feet. I had no idea what they were going to be. I looked around the house and found these old credit cards, and I started cutting those up so I can start turning them into feet until I found these at Dollar Tree. These were perfect. I chose the numbers 1, 3, and 6 to represent that 1 out of 36 children will be diagnosed with ASD, Autism Spectrum Disorder, and that would be a perfect stat to include in this piece. So I glued the dominoes to the BNC cable connectors and shaved off some of the edges of the feet, and we were good to go. To add more oomph to the feet, I found these pieces in the house. I have no idea what they're called, but I believe they hold cables together, and I just filed it down so they could fit around the BNC cable connectors and add just more girth to the feet. And of course, I finished off with more CA glue and baking soda. So I was playing around with the arms, and this is what I came up with. For the shoulders, we have wooden beads. For the upper arms, it's going to be the Sephora sample makeup applicators. And for the elbows, we have plastic beads. And for the forearms, it's going to be a combination of the other half of the Sephora makeup sample applicators, along with a portion of the doggy poop bag tubes. For the palm of the hands, we got plastic beads, and for the fingers, smaller plastic beads, and to put the hands together, we're going to add in some fluorescent wire. The most difficult part about this arm was the elbow joint. I needed to drill a big enough hole to support the Sephora makeup applicators, and the plastic bead would break on me. Once I got a set of 2 that were good to go, building the rest of the arm was straightforward. With a little help from CA glue and baking soda, for each hand I drilled 4 holes into a plastic bead, which was a lot easier in comparison to the elbow joint, and to each hole I placed in a fluorescent wire strand, and for each strand I placed 3 beads for 3 fingers and then 2 beads for the thumb. And of course, more CA glue and baking soda. If you notice the ornament of Bob Ross on my workbench, I have him there to remind me not to be a perfectionist. We don't make mistakes, we just have happy accidents. I also have him there as someone to talk to. The next thing I had to do was open up the USB charger so I can install lights in it. And I tried to pry it open, I tried to crush it open. The only option I had was to cut it open, which was a little scary because I didn't want to damage the piece too much. So once I was able to get it open, I took out the board that was inside with all the resistors, capacitors, all that stuff. I plan to use that as greeblies, and I was able to clean up the front piece to the point where I can work with it and drill more holes. The other hole that I needed to drill was for the neck, where I was going to feed the electrical cables through into the body of the robot. And once that was set, I could focus more on the faceplate. After careful measurement, I started to drill holes into the faceplate. Unfortunately, I do not have big enough drill bits to make the holes big enough for the lights to feed through to create the eyes, so I needed to file it up to the point where they can fit. Of course, these holes would not be perfect, but hey, you know what? No mistakes, just happy accidents. After getting the holes to where they needed to be, I did a dry fit test with the lights and the light fixtures. When everything was good, we had a nice little test of the lights, and then we had to secure the fixtures to the USB charger to the head. I created a nice little apparatus using the doggy poop bag tubes to securely hold the light fixtures in place, allowing me to easily screw or unscrew light bulbs into the fixtures, and also securely hold the electrical cables from those fixtures down into the neck and into the body of the robot. Once everything was set, I added more CA glue and baking soda to make sure everything was locked in tight. And once that was completed, I sealed the USB charger back up with more CA glue and baking soda. And admittedly, it was also followed up with a lot more filing and sanding. To complete the head, I need to start adding in more greeblies to help hide the massive cut-up job, and for me to add in ears. I'm using keys harvested from several discarded laptops to create the paneling on the head, and then I use forks recycled from a Lunar New Year event to create the ears. I cut and file the forks to the shape I need and glue it to the paneling. Additional items I used for greeblies include decorative gears and metal keyboard key stabilizer rods. I then take time to revisit the arms, as I didn't actually create a spot to attach them to on the torso, as the arms were kind of created on the fly. I choose to melt holes into the torso as a place to attach the arms. The funny thing is that I did eventually use more pieces from the Sephora sample makeup applicators to connect the arms to the torso, but I didn't record it. And what I do next is go on a greebly frenzy. Starting with the feet, I source more items from the discarded laptops for the greeblies. These include keyboard pieces, capacitors, resistors, wiring, LEDs, screws, and so much more, and I'm just placing them wherever I see fit. One interesting piece that I found on what I now know is called a lip wand is that you can remove the tip, and I thought this looked like hydraulics in some form and added it to the arm. Other pieces I used as greeblies for the arms are gears, beads, screws, keyboard parts, and rhinestones. I continue the trend on the torso, adding in more pieces from the dead laptops, and another set of greeblies that I decided to use included pieces from zip ties. I also wanted to add a little tail to it. After all the pieces were completed, it was time to add some primer and see what it really looks like. And when I saw the piece after being primed, I freaked out. For starters, I thought the legs were way too short and stubbly. I originally wanted them to be that way, but after the torso got bulked up with all the greeblies, I wanted the legs to be longer and more substantial. 2, I thought the tail was way too short and thin. And 3, I felt there were some empty voids that were distracting. It's a really interesting thing to see that if you have the right amount of greeblies, you don't notice anything. But when you don't have enough, it feels like something is missing. And with all the details I have in this piece, there are definitely some voids that felt empty. So I go on another frenzy off camera as it was way past bedtime and I didn't have the equipment set up for recording. But to extend the legs, I added wooden beads for the knees and doggy poop bag tubes for the upper legs. Then for the tail, I used lamp wire wrapped with florist wire, and to fill in the distracting voids, I sprinkled in a bunch more greeblies. When all of that was completed, this was the outcome. It took a long time to figure out a name for the robot, but after long thought and discussion, I came up with Puzz-L the Capable. I originally had names such as Puzz-L the Lost or Puzz-L the Challenged, but those titles did not fit the way I felt about people that had been diagnosed with autism. I also placed a puzzle piece in the hand, one of the first symbols that is used to represent autism. It originally symbolized the perceived puzzling, mysterious, and complex nature of autism, but it has now evolved to other associations, such as the challenge to find understanding, the challenge to find one's strength, or to represent the wide range of autistic experiences and the unique contributions of autistic individuals. I have also learned recently that the puzzle piece is seen to be offensive to some people in the autistic community, but we'll save that discussion for another video. Thank you so much for watching. Please stay tuned for part 2 of this series where we go over the development of the butterfly. Special shout out to all the patrons and donors. Without you, we just wouldn't be doing what we're doing. And if you would like to donate to our fundraising campaign for autism research, please check out the link in the description below. See you all next time.